Everyone, my name is Ryan from Excel Logics, and welcome to the video where we'll discuss the lookup function, the VLOOKUP function, as well as the HLOOKUP function, index, and match. Let's start by just discussing the lookup function. The Excel lookup function performs an approximate match lookup in one column or one row range, and returns a corresponding value from another one column or one row range. Lookup's default behavior makes it useful for solving certain problems in Excel. So I'll quickly just show you how we can use it. Let's make a little example where we'll put points and then different levels. So we could do like laser tag score, and we'll put maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So here we have a list of the scores, and then we have the award, or the place. So we could do like gold, maybe like platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and then we could have maybe participant. For anything below here. And this could be your award category. Perfect. So over here we could have a list of our players. So we could have player ID and their score. And we'll just drag these all a little bit bigger. Perfect. So let's create some player IDs. I'll just use ran between. We'll just drag this down to generate some player scores from a game of laser tag. Let's give everyone a score randomly between 10 and 101. So the nice thing about using the lookup function is it can perform an approximate match. So now that we have these here, we'll just add this, and we'll add their award category. So by approximate match, I mean the value doesn't exactly have to match one in here. It will just return the closest match. So if this is 91, it should return gold, because that's closest to 90 for the award category. I'm just going to copy these and paste them back as values. And we'll just go here. And let's make one of them like 100. Okay, perfect. So then here we'll use the lookup function. So just type equals lookup. And then our lookup value is 91. And our lookup vector is here. And our result vector is here. And what we want to do, we'll leave the J5 as a free variable. So as I pull it down, that will move down and grab each of these scores. But I want to lock up my lookup vector so that it doesn't move as I drag the formula down. So I'll put a $sign in front of the letter and a $sign before the number of the cell so that both of those values stay locked. And close it off with the close bracket and just hit enter. So you see that 91 isn't exactly 90, but the lookup function is an approximate lookup. So it matches 91 to 90, because that's closest, and then returns gold. We'll just drag it down. And then we have each person's award category. So that's pretty much how it works for the lookup function. So I'll just quickly talk about how you do each of the pieces. So let's just look at the syntax. So the syntax for our function looks like this. Lookup, and then here you'll put in the lookup value. Then next you'll put in the lookup vector. And then next you'll put in the result vector. So if you look in the example here, you can see that our lookup value is this person's score. We're going to look up to the closest match in this red vector. And by vector, it means array, or just list of things. In this case, the list is a range, and the range is D5 through D14. And then once it finds a match, or a closest match, in the lookup vector, it returns the corresponding value in column E, which is the result vector, between E5 and E14. So if it matches to 80, it will return silver. Or if the value matches to 90, gold, or 100, platinum, 70, bronze, and anything below 60 should be returning participant. So that's kind of the syntax, and I'll just go over each thing. So lookup value, it could be a word, it could be text, it could be date, it could be a number, it could be a wide variety of things that you want to look up. Then the lookup vector, it should be a range. And then the result vector should also be a range in your sheet. What else can I say about the lookup vector? If it can't be found, so like what if we put like 1000? It will just go to the closest. So there's no 1000 here, but even if I put that, it goes to the closest. If I put -10, then we get an error, because it can't match to any of these scores, because none of them are negative. But if I put 9, still nothing. If I put 11, then we have a match. So you might want to add something here that maybe is 0, for example. And you could put lowest award, something like that. And then if I put 2, still an error. I have to adjust this, so I'll just pull this up and pull this one up and enter, and then drag it here. Now what if we put a negative? Is it going to work now? Still not. I'd have to add a negative value, I believe. So I'll just add -10, and this is fail, something like that. And as I drag it down now, it can match. If I put -11, error. If I put -9, it will match it to -10. So you always have to make sure that your table goes to the lowest value and maybe one step below the lowest value. So my lowest step is -9. I'll make my table start at -10 and go up by tens. The lookup is not case sensitive, so maybe if like this is, well, if you want to look up by text, so we could try that as well. So let's look up this. So let's put people's award categories. And then their cash prize. So if your award category is platinum, silver, gold, bronze, participant, I'll just take these, paste them here, and then we can just remove the duplicates. That'll be a little bit faster. We go to data, remove duplicates, and just hit no, continue with current selection. Okay, perfect. So we have all of our things here. It goes from fail to lowest award participant to platinum. So I'll just put, this is 0, 0, and let's make these currency. And we could do 10, 20, 100, 200, 300. And maybe that's 0 to make this 50. And let's make this here. Perfect. So we have our award category, the corresponding cash prize. Let's use the lookup function to actually just return the cash prize as a new column in our score chart. So this could be the cash prize. So you'll see that you can use the lookup function with text as well, because we'll look up the text in the award category column and return the cash prize. Whereas before we just did it with looking up numbers. So it equals lookup value, the award category, lookup vector is this vector, D31 to D37. And I'm going to lock them in, so when I drag down they don't move. My result vector is my cash prize array, or list. And let me just add in my locking. And close bracket, enter. So now it's returning to us the corresponding cash prize depending on the person's award category. And there we have it. Oh, it looks like lowest award. Why is it returning that? Got platinum. This should be returning 0. Participant. Let's see here. What is it doing? Fail should be returning 0. Well, since this example didn't work, I'll show you another way you could do it. You could use the VLOOKUP. Or you can use match even. You could do match and look up this in this array. So if I drag this down, you'll see that it returns the index of the match. And I forgot to lock this in, didn't I? If I drag this down, the example is it returns 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's matching gold to position 6 in the list. And then, here's what you do. You do the choose function, which we discussed. You do the choose function. This is the index number. And then you put in each of the values. So I'll put 0, 0, 0, 50, 100. You can see the formula up here. And then 200, and then 300. And enter. And that should work better for our purposes. Now I think we have the right thing. Why is it still returning 200 for participant? I don't know why it's doing that. We can fix it. Just check the other ones, like fail is also not working. Don't know why these aren't working, maybe because these are blank. But I'll just put participant should just be 0. So I'm going to wrap this in another formula so we can correct the mistake. If this equals participant, put 0. Or else you can do the choose command. So we'll correct anything that has participant in it. Perfect. Now we can correct anything that has fail, because fail should also be 0. So I can use the OR function. If or k5 equals participant, or K5 equals fail. Close the bracket to close off your OR function, and then continue as normal. And we'll go ahead and drag that down, and we should correct anything that has fail in it. We have 200 for gold, 0 for participant, 0 for fail, 200 for gold, 50 for bronze, 300 for platinum. I think it's working now, except that lowest award is still returning 200. So I'm going to add that as another condition in the OR formula. If K5 is participant, or K5 is fail, or K5 equals lowest award. And go ahead and drag that down again. And it should be working as expected now. So that's kind of how you can use the lookup function, and then we subbed in some other functions to make it work as we wanted it to. So we use the if function, and we also use the or function. So the or function just returns true if at least one of the arguments is true. So if K5 is participant, or K5 is fail, or K5 is lowest award, it returns true, and then it evaluates as 0. If none of these are true, it returns false, and then it jumps to the choose formula. So then it looks up the match in our list here and returns the cash prize. And hit enter, and that's pretty much it. So in the next part of the video, we'll talk about using the VLOOKUP function as well as the HLOOKUP function. Talk about the VLOOKUP function, which is a very powerful function in Excel. It's often used to really simplify formulas and make it a lot easier, especially when you have a bunch of nested if statements. It can really come in handy. The VLOOKUP is an Excel function to look up and retrieve data from a specific column in a table. VLOOKUP supports an approximate and exact matching, as well as wildcards for partial matches. The V in the formula stands for vertical, and the lookup just means that it's looking up in a table and returning something to the right. So let's see an example of how it works, and then we'll talk about the syntax. I'm going to make some data. So my data is going to be maybe someone's first name, last name. We could also put their ID, their email, and their department. So this could be used for like a large company. We'll just make it look nice and add some data. So we'll just do Ryan, Bob, George, Lee, Sam, Megan, Ashley, Rob, Julie, Mary, Tahir, Ahmed, and their last name. So we'll just put people's last names. I'll just make up random ones. I'm just making up random things. Okay, perfect. So then for their ID, I'll just make it random. And their email, I'll just make each person's email equal to their first name and a dot and their last name and at, maybe we can make up any company. Why don't we just call our company like bettersoftware@bettersoftware.com. And close that off and just hit enter. So it automatically generates each person's email because we know that they're that way, and drag it down. Now that we have each person's email, let's add their department. So we'll just put like fulfillment, sales, marketing, management, business intelligence, operations. Just put like fulfillment, sales. What else could we do? We could do like IT, and maybe something else I could do. Doesn't matter. I'll just put another operations. Perfect. I'll put communications. So once we have our little database here, let's see how we can use the VLOOKUP function to return values. So this could be something as simple as you enter their ID and it populates all the other variables. So let's put input employee ID, and you input an employee ID here and you just hit enter. The VLOOKUP function will automatically return their name, their email, their department. Perfect. So let's see how we can do that. I'm just going to merge these two together and drag it down so we have more room for each of the variables. And I'll add borders to all. And I'll make this yellow so people know that's where you put the data in. So for the name, I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function twice. It equals vertical lookup. I want to look up the ID. I want to look it up in this table. I want to return values, column index 1, and only for exact match. So let's try this. So this doesn't work right now because this data is to the left of the ID column. So I'm going to need to move that data to the right. Let me just cut it. And let me just move this over here. Perfect. So let's try that again. Look up in this table, E58, which is the ID, and I want to look it up in this table, and I'll just lock these cells because these will stay locked. Same with this guy. I want to return the value from column 2, which is just their first name. Perfect. But we want their full name. So let's do and add a space, and then and let's put their last name, and VLOOKUP. Same thing, E58, table array, same table array, column index 3, because the third column contains the last name, and 0. So it's not going to return anything if the employee ID doesn't exactly match one of the IDs in the table, and hit enter. Now the only issue with this formula is if I enter an employee ID that doesn't match, I get an error. And we can handle the error using the if error wrapping statement. So you just wrap your formula in if error, open bracket. So what if error does is it first tries to evaluate this, and if this returns an error, it puts whatever you put after the comma. So I put a comma here, and I can enter the value if there's an error. So I'm just going to put no match found for ID and this value, and enter. So it says no match found for ID 999, but if you put 669, then we have a match. Let's look at their email now. We'll do the VLOOKUP function again. VLOOKUP ID in this table, and I want to return values from column index 4 with only exact matches. Then we get their email and department, very similar, VLOOKUP. Look up the employee ID in the same table, look up column index 5, and only if it's an exact match. And now we have a little tool. Say you can, now if you wanted, you could hide the database. And you have this nice little tool, maybe that's in your company dashboard, that allows you just to input someone's ID. Tells you if there's a match. Oh, I should add the if error wrapping statements here too. So if I put in one of their IDs, let me just get the list of IDs here. Perfect, so I could put in like 743 and it returns Ashley, or 963 and it returns to here. So that's kind of how it works. And then if you had a bunch of IDs, you could hide this, or if you want to take it one step further, you could make this a drop down. We talked about that in one of the other videos. Just go to data validation and only select ones from a list. And we'll select the list to be this list here. And just click OK. Now when someone clicks on this, they no longer have to enter a value. You can just pick it from a drop-down. If you wanted to go one step further even, we'll take this data here and we'll just sort it based on ID, so that when the drop-down comes up, they're sorted from least to greatest. So I'll just grab this whole table here, and I'll go to Filter. I just want to sort from largest to smallest. Actually, let's sort from smallest to largest. Perfect, there we are. Now when this drop down comes up, it goes from smallest to largest, the same order as it is in the table. Now I can hide this nicely. We don't need people to see all the data at once. They're only searching for one thing at a time. So they'll come here and they'll select one of the employee IDs that they're looking for, and then all their data pops up. That's a simple example of how to use the VLOOKUP function. It's super useful. And next we'll talk about the horizontal lookup. Talk about the horizontal lookup function. The horizontal lookup function looks up and retrieves data from a specific row in a table. The H stands for horizontal, where lookup values appear in the first row of the table. Moving horizontally to the right, HLOOKUP supports approximate and exact matching, as well as wildcards for finding partial matches. Let's just look at the syntax first. And I'll just hide these rows because we don't need to see them. And we have a nice blank sheet here. So our syntax for HLOOKUP. So your syntax is like this. Equals HLOOKUP. Then you'll put in the value that you want to look up. You'll put in the table, so just the range of your table. You'll put in the row index. And lastly, you'll put in the range lookup. So let me explain each of these pieces. The value is just what you want to search for. So I'll just put the value to look up. Your table, that's just your range, so the table from which to retrieve data. The row index is which row do you want to return data on after it finds a match. So I'll put the row number to retrieve data from. So, I mean, for this whole part of the video, just imagine HLOOKUP has a VLOOKUP on its side. So it's just a VLOOKUP that's horizontal instead of vertical. And the range lookup, this is essentially a Boolean, which means it's either true or false for whether you allow approximate matches or only exact matches. So this means like if this is set to true, it will sometimes return values that match but not exactly. So like 1 might get mapped to 0, but if you had it as false, it would just return error if there's not an exact match in the table. So let's just look at kind of how you can use it. I'll do a little example here. So I'll just make a little table for us. So why don't we put in like some random data. I'll put in people's names and maybe there's something on them, like put their name. We could put like the month. And we could put like, I'll just use the same names as before maybe. Wherever I hid them all, they're all here. Perfect. And then here we could put like their, it could be anything. I'll just put letters. I'll just put random numbers, like maybe these are their sales. Let's put a for different categories. And we'll just quickly randomize the rest. Perfect. So now that we have our data here, just paste it again. So we should be able to use the HLOOKUP in this case. So I'm just going to put equals HLOOKUP here, and this will be the result. So I'll do this, equals HLOOKUP. And then we could put the month. So maybe let's have a small little section for month where they input a month. So I'll put month here. So they should select a month, and then out comes the result for each person. So we'll do this, equals HLOOKUP. We want to look up this value in this table array. The row index. As I drag this down, I want it to fill out the row index, so it goes down, 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 down. So I'm going to put count A from here and lock this cell to here. So what this does, right now it returns 1. As I drag the formula down to the bottom of my table, it's going to go 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's always returning the row that I want to correspond with the person's name. And then for range lookup, just put 0. It has to be an exact match. And hit enter. It returns NA right now, since we don't have the correct month. What I'll do is I'll make a month dropdown. So I'll copy these values, and I'll just transpose them over here. And we can make a selection. Data, data validation. Let's allow values from a list, and our list will be right here. Perfect, and OK. So you have to select a month, and then it outputs whatever it finds. So this, I have to do this plus 1. Perfect. So then what we'll do here is we'll drag this formula down, and I think I locked up everything I needed to. Yes, that should be okay. Drag it down. Oh, I forgot to lock this cell here. Now, say we just want to hide all this. And perhaps we want to hide these as well. And this could be our score data retriever tool. So what this does is you just have to select a month and then it retrieves each person's score. So you just go like this. I'll just apply some final formatting here. Cool. So someone comes along and they want to know, so all of maybe students or salespersons or whatever, you want to know their score in the month of February. So that will automatically pull them all. And the reason here we use the HLOOKUP function is just that. Let's go back to our data set. It needs to look up the month, so it's horizontal instead of vertical, because the values that we're looking up are horizontally distributed through the cells F80, I think F79 to I79. So that's why we use the HLOOKUP and not the VLOOKUP. Then we're looking up January, so once it hits January, it says, okay, I found January, and then it goes down to the row. But we made a special formula to select the correct row. Row starts at 1, and if it's George, it's row 2. If it's Sam, it's row 3. If it's Mary, it's row 4. Because the count A function just counts all the cells between E80 and E80, but the E80 changes as it goes down. So it goes from 1, and it goes all the way down to Megan. But the E80 here stays fixed. So basically, as you drag the formula down, the count A is just going up by 1 each time. The reason we have to add the +1 at the end is because, or else it will just return the month, because this name and then the months is actually the first row of your table. So you have to make sure you increase the increment by 1 so that it always returns Ryan and then George and then Sam scores and then Mary scores. And the 0 is just because we want an exact match. So if there's no exact match for the month, it should just come out as an error. And we can handle the errors by wrapping it in an if-error statement. So we could say, month not found. And the nice thing about this is that since we use the list, it's impossible to put in anything else anyway. Because if I try to type July, I just get an error. It's not allowed. So that definitely works. And then if you maybe wanted to allow people to put in anything they want, you could just go here and clear the data validation. And then they could actually type anything in. But if it's an error, the if error will just return match not found. So that's a little brief rundown on how to use the horizontal lookup function to kind of just grab people's scores from this table. And this is, you can imagine like all the uses for it. This is just a small example. But if you were to expand on this and use this in combination with VLOOKUP and lookup and match and index and everything else, you can really do a lot in Excel. If you have any questions on any of the lookup functions we discussed today, you can reach us at support@excellogics.org.